Echo's Box podcast is not meant to be or claiming to be a good place for therapeutic advice. The host is not a licensed therapist and is not offering any services or advice related to mental health in a professional manner. The content discussed on Echo's Box is commonly highly explicit due to the real nature of expressing honest emotions. While we don't mean to offend anyone, the reality is these discussions might be triggering to many people. Out of respect for all, please do not listen if this content isn't right for you, and forgive us if you have a poor experience. Keep your brain healthy. Hey everyone, welcome back to Echo's Box. This is episode 14, Ceremonial Magick. So you were just listening to me sing a cover of Divisionary by Era. If you like that kind of stuff, just a reminder, go check out my TikTok and my Instagram. It's TikTok Jones Music or just Jones Music on Instagram. All of my covers, originals, anything, it's all there. But anyway, on to the topic for today. I've got a lot of announcements that I'm super excited about that are both related directly to this topic and just related to the podcast itself. So the first big one is our brand new website is now up. You can now go to echoesbox.com and you will find everything related to what we're doing here at Echoes Box. Everything from the podcast, the books that we got coming out, the social media stuff, the esoterica stuff, all of it's there. References and links and everything that you would need. We have a new contact page. So if you go to the contact page on echoesbox.com, there's a contact form that you can fill out and you can kind of send us inquiries through that. Or you can reach out at contactus@echoesbox.com. That is the new email. If you send anything to the old Gmail, it'll still go there. Don't worry, it's all linked up and coordinated. So you can just feel free to send it there and we'll get it either way. Any kind of requests or inquiries that you have, whether it's suggestions on topics, guests, or you just want to reach out to us and ask us something, those lines are open. So yeah, that's the first big announcement. Second big announcement is the book I've been working on, Fundamental Magick, is now complete. I've just ordered my proof copies for it. They'll be here in a couple weeks, and as long as those come out okay and as they're expected, we're going to move forward from there. So it should be up for pre-order very, very soon. So yeah, I'm super excited about all that. I hope it kind of goes along well. If not, I'll tackle those problems when we get there and resolve them, but we're on the cusp of it. So just keep an eye out from that, and that, of course, follow us on all our social medias and check out echoesbox.com and you'll know when it comes out. So yeah, Fundamental Magick is a book that is about ceremonial magic, which is our topic for today. So that's how everything's kind of tied in. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the podcast. I'll kind of talk about what that book's about a little bit more if you haven't kind of figured it out by now, especially if you're new and this is the first episode you're jumping in on. I'll give you some more context. But I want to talk about ceremonial magic because I've hinted at it a lot in other episodes of the podcast as a practice that I do that kind of helps me with my mental health, helps me just in life in general. And I want to talk about how I got started in it. Why did I even pick this practice up? What is all this weird shit? What even is it? Stuff like that. So if you've never heard of ceremonial magic before, consider this your primer. And it's going to come with a little backstory as well, so you kind of know where I'm coming from on this as well. So yeah, how I got kind of started is a really long story that is founded in a lot of the other issues that I've talked about in other topics on the podcast that I've dealt with. So a couple of years ago now, it's been way more than that. These years are flying by. I've pretty much lost everything. I didn't lose everything all at once. It was kind of slow and steady path. And in a way, that's good because I was able to lose some things, gain some things back, and then lose some more things and rinse and repeat. And in a way, it was a cycle of kind of cleaning my life out. And in some ways, I'm still going through that cycle and figuring some of these things out. But I lost my partner. I had to remove all my roommates that were some of my close friends. A lot of my friends fell off the face of the planet. People got sick because of the pandemic. Detached from my family. A lot of stuff kind of happened all at once, and it was very painful. So one of the key things, though, was after losing my relationship, that was a big hold on some stability I had in life. I really relied on my partner for a lot of things. Like I said, we kind of had a codependent relationship that ended up not being healthy. So it's almost for the best that everything happened the way it did. But before she left, while we were still kind of being friends or trying to maintain some kind of friendship, she introduced me to the show The Midnight Gospel. Both her and I were big Pendleton Ward fans. We loved Adventure Time. We loved shows like that. And I guess she just stumbled upon the show and was like, dude, I think you might like this. And shortly after that, we stopped kind of associating with each other and talking. It didn't really go quite as expected. We did talk a little bit more and caught up a little bit after that before she moved halfway across the country. That was a whole thing. But the cool thing about The Midnight Gospel is it is a show that really broadened my horizons. I didn't understand what it was all about because I had never heard of Duncan Trussell before. I'd never seen his podcast. And the content of the show didn't really click with me, that it was all kind of deeper in some respects, until I kind of traced things back and really paid attention to what was going on. And when I did that, I realized that, yeah, I mean, this is a funny little cartoon. It's got plenty of good comedy and it's super entertaining, but it's also super insightful. A lot of the guests he has on there are guests from his podcast, and they have really deep and meaningful conversations. And the episode that probably stuck with me the most was the episode that featured Damien Eccles. And this is the fish guy or fishbowl episode with all the cats and stuff. It's a super good episode just in and of itself. But I don't know why. Something stuck with me about what they were talking about in regards to ceremonial magic and his journey. And I had never really, I had heard of the West Memphis 3, but I had never really heard of it outside of like the news and stuff like that. I was kind of young when it all happened, and it was like more of a almost in-class historical event when I had learned about it in school and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just a really powerful episode to me for some reason. So I looked into it and started to see what was up, and I found Duncan Trussell's podcast, and I kind of listened to the whole episode in the context of the episode itself, and looked into more what Damien was all about, see if it was like just some weird guy doing stuff, or if this was actually somebody somewhat trustworthy who was making a difference out there in the world. And turns out it was. So I found Damien Eccles, and I kind of dived down that rabbit hole for a bit, but I didn't really do anything with it, right? I just kind of was like, oh, okay, this is an interesting character. Here's some knowledge about the world and some insightful perspectives on how to kind of get out of bad situations and take control of your life in some ways. And from there, I kind of listened to more of Duncan Trussell's podcast, and also listened to or watched a lot of The Midnight Gospel till I was done with it. And I even stumbled across Jason Louv, which was another guest. He was the bird in kind of like the Lifelink episode where they're in the prison. And I stumbled across his work as well. And everything was just kind of like pointing towards ceremonial magic for me. It's like, okay, what is this stuff? So I decided to pick up High Magic, which was Damien Eccles' first book. And I started reading through it, and I was like, man, this shit is whack. What's going on here? But, you know, I was in a really low point in my life, and I was looking for any answer. Everything I was trying wasn't working. And I had tried to go back to my old roots. That seemed stale. I had tried to just do different practical things through therapy and different emotional affirmations and stuff like that, but nothing was sticking. I hated doing it. I had to have motivation to get into it. And I'm a driven person, but even a driven person in their lowest states is not going to have the same drive that they always did. So knowing that I have good capabilities and discipline and stuff like that, I said, all right, well, let's stick to it. Let's see what this weird stuff is, right? And what's really cool about High Magic is it doesn't throw you right into ceremonial magic. That'd be crazy. There's a reason it doesn't do that, because it's complicated. It gets really weird really fast if you don't have good fundamentals. If you have good fundamentals, it's actually really easy to get to the next thing. And Damien does an excellent job teaching all these things. So what it really did introduce me to was meditation. I had already started doing mindfulness meditation as kind of like a way to focus my brain and try to have pause during my day, so I wasn't thinking about the pain so much all the time. But it was really, really difficult because I was meditating without purpose. I didn't really have any other reason to meditate other than to try to escape. And at the time I was escaping with various substances as well. So it was like, it didn't matter to me which way worked, as long as something worked to give me an escape. But I didn't want to escape. I wanted to grow. And I thought meditation was supposed to help me grow, and it really wasn't. But high magic kind of introduced me more to what the purpose of meditation is in a lot of ways. And so I kind of kept at it. I continued to practice mindfulness for well over a year. And at some point along the way, I started practicing the exercises within high magic as well. So I didn't really get quite to the ceremonial magic type stuff. I just did the meditation, and then I moved along into some of the energy work practices. I moved along into some of the thought exercises, and even some of the meditations that were provided. The book teaches these ideas of lunar and solar meditation, which are just different meditations that you want to do at different times of day, and you change your focus point. Whereas like in mindfulness, you're really paying attention to the body and the breath, and letting thoughts come and go. In these lunar and solar meditations, you're focusing on the sun and the moon, and visualizing you just being in sunlight or being in moonlight, and feeling what that energy feels like feeling the rays of the sun, or imagining your aura and stuff like that. And at the time, these were very abstract concepts to me. I didn't really identify really well with the idea of an aura or the idea of energy, but I did it anyway. I really was like, all right, we're doing this because we need to try anything. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's one of the really neat things that I liked about Damien Eccles, was like, it works. Everybody does magic all the time, whether you call it that or not. Every time you step through your day and think of something and then do it, that is magic, just like anything else. And that's the most simple form of it. So just existing, you're doing magic. Every breath you take, every thought you have, every way you direct and focus your intention, that's you directing and focusing energy into something, even if it's just emotional or mental energy in those capacities. It's still magic. That's what magic is. And so I was like, oh, okay. So, if these things produce a certain outcome, then that's testable. So therefore I can be like, all right, well, I'm going to do this lunar meditation and think of a goal or an intention that I want to set during it, and just do it. And it'll either have that outcome or it won't. And what I was able to find, because at the time a lot of my focus was just trying to relieve myself from the pain I was in, I saw that I was able to pause the pain by doing the practices. And that made me realize, hey, there's something to all this. Something is working. So I kept moving. And I got up to what's known as the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, or the LBRP. Once I got there, I was kind of fully immersed into ceremonial magic. Things started to click a little bit. I had already done a lot of the exercises like the middle pillar, sign of silence, and other little tools that kind of lead up to the components that create the LBRP, the Kabbalistic cross. There's a whole lot of different, like, I guess you call them mini rituals. Some aren't really rituals in and of themselves so much as they are like meditations or practices or focuses that build into a larger ritual. Some of them are rituals. They're just like small rituals all on their own. But all a ritual really is in magic is a meditation that has a formula to meet a goal. So when we think of a ritual, we can think of two things. One may be a ritual like what your day-to-day is. What's your morning ritual, for example? You get up, maybe you make a cup of coffee, have some cereal, and you go to work every single day. It's a routine. It's a ritual for you. That's one way to think of it. Another way people think of is like crazy sacrifices with candles and all kinds of crazy things. And I guess in some ways, both of those things are kind of rituals. But in ceremonial magic, it's neither of those. It's a very meditative-like practice. But the difference between a meditative practice and ceremonial magic is the intention and the goals. And in ceremonial magic, you're not just meditating for the sake of meditating. You're doing specific actions in a state that is similar to meditation to achieve a certain outcome. So at some point, I started doing Zazen because Zazen meditation was taught by some of Damien's books. I can't remember if it started Angels and Archangels or High Magic, one of the two, but I kind of paused at the LBRP and was like, all right, well, meditation has helped me a lot in grasping these ceremonial magic concepts. So let's move on to Zazen. Let's move on then the prison cell meditation, which is another one that he teaches. And I just did those. I did those for months and months, pretty much like a whole year of more meditations. And I didn't completely stop doing magic. I did my normal daily rituals at the point I was at, but as part of that, I would primarily focus on meditation. So maybe I would do a middle pillar exercise to ground myself, and then I would just go and meditate for a couple hours or something like that. And at the time, and this is even true now, I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating real well. So my daily ritual of life was to basically crawl off the couch in the morning, work out, do my morning meditation, get through my work day, do some more magic, and do some more meditation. And it would be that I would spend hours and hours and hours on these things. And I just kept moving and I kept growing. And it got to the point where I am now, where over the years, I kept doing that. And now my practice is pretty much just magic. I do, there's meditations that are in the realm of ceremonial magic that I'll still do. For example, one of the teachings in Angels and Archangels is this idea of angel or archangel meditation, where you focus on a specific entity that corresponds with something. Say you're looking to increase your knowledge. Well, the archangel Raphael is associated with knowledge and healing and a couple other things. And so maybe you focus on that particular entity to reach a certain goal, and now you just meditate on it and go from there. So now my daily ritual practice currently consists of a lesser banishing ritual, the hexagram, followed by a lesser invoking ritual, the hexagram, followed by an archangel meditation. And then I just kind of conclude from there. And I make sure I do at minimum that every day. And that's not the only magic I do, but that is like the bare minimum. If I do nothing else at all, that is what I do. And during that process, I focus on the different goals and things that I want to achieve. So I will, especially when I'm invoking, I'll invoke Raphael, and I'll ask him to kind of assist me with victory in overcoming obstacles and achieving goals, to increase my knowledge, to increase my wisdom, and to provide healing. And then with Michael, I'll ask for power, strength, and protection, and help me to protect others just as he protects me. With Gabriel, I'll ask for love, kindness, and more healing mentally and physically, and ask to be sure that I am loving and kind to others just as Gabriel is to me. And then with Uriel, I'll ask for increase in wealth in all aspects of life, not just financials, just to be a wealthy human being, which of course ideally would include that. It would help a lot in life to have some money, that helps everybody. And also increase divination. And then I also do Damien's practice, where I incorporate Metatron and Sandalphon above and below. And I incorporate Metatron for focus and Sandalphon for grounding. So I kept moving, right? So this is how far along I am in my practice, and I'm going from there. And I'll kind of talk about my next steps a little bit further on in this episode. But I'm spouting a lot of weird spiritual stuff, talking about angels and weird stuff. So what are these concepts even? So even if you're not a very spiritual person, and you don't really believe in any of these things, it's fine. That's one of the most beautiful things about magic, is because I didn't really believe in a lot of these things to begin with. I came from a background where I considered myself a Christian, but I had long deconstructed my religion even before starting this practice, but I was kind of lost, and I still had a lot of different worldviews. But I did kind of have a natural kind of spiritual connection. I believe there was something more to the world than what we can observe naturally. And I think that's just an observable truth, or I guess a non-observable truth. You can't know what you don't know. And it's complicated. This is why we have debates and arguments over this kind of stuff in the world. But that's beautiful, because you can even be somebody who's completely agnostic or atheist and still do ceremonial magic. You can go through these formulas, and even if you're like, all right, angels don't really exist, but I'm going to sit here and do the practice and invoke all these angels and do the things, you'll still get the same outcome. Because at bare minimum, it is a reflection of your consciousness. Angels are a reflection of your outer consciousness, and even working with what we would call demons or goetic spirits are a reflection of your internal consciousness. And so you want to kind of work with both these entities at some point in time if you're doing a practice like this, just to balance yourself and become whole and work with these things. And it's complicated, because like angels aren't exactly what you would think when you think of maybe Abrahamic religions and Christianity. Ceremonial magic does derive a lot of the symbolism from Western ideology, But angels are very different than what you may have thought growing up. And then the same with demons. Demons aren't these evil, spooky things that, we see on TV where they come and they possess people and do all this kind of stuff. That's not what those are. Now, those entities do exist in the realm of all magics, and we do still call them demons in some ways, but those are completely different things than goetic spirits, which is a whole other rabbit hole. And I'm not going to dive too deep into that because this isn't a whole episode on different concepts and hermeticism and magic and all this kind of other stuff. But just to kind of illustrate an idea that there are these weird fucking concepts that people are probably going to be obtuse to if they start learning about ceremonial magic, because it's almost a deterrent, right? Like if you're coming from a place where especially if like a religion like Christianity or Judaism or Islam rubbed you the wrong way, you're going to see these references and these symbolisms and you're going to be like, ugh, no, I don't believe in this crap. And that's totally valid. At one point in time, I would agree with you. But that's cool because you can be the most advanced practitioner of magic and still not really believe, so to speak, in these entities so much as you are interacting with a formula and gaining a certain result. So you can at least acknowledge the energy transference that is there, the correspondences that are there, and the focus. And even if you just think it's all in your head and all in your own psyche, if it gets you to the end goal, who fucking cares? So that's something that's really beautiful about magic to me, is because it doesn't matter what you believe or think. It either works or it doesn't, and it makes it worth trying. In my case, it was. So what did I learn from all this, right? Because I'm over here talking about all these different concepts, saying, oh, well, it either works or it doesn't. Well, what worked for me and what did I get out of it? Well, for me, all of it worked. And that was kind of surprising because I was expecting some stuff not to work. Some stuff I've seen accounts doesn't work for some people. Some people have to modify some things in a way that works for them and their life and the way their mind works. But for me, it all kind of worked out of the gate. So what I learned first and foremost, which I think is the most powerful thing, Jason Louv teaches this pretty heavily as well, is that I learned that I am now in total control of how I respond to life. And I've mentioned this in episodes before, but I get to choose how I respond to anything that occurs in life. I am now responsible for how my life goes completely. Like, don't get me wrong, external things will impact your life. People will be mean to you. Things won't go your way. Life will attack you and impact you in different ways, both positively and negatively. But even in those cases where it's not your fault, you are still in control of how you respond to those situations and how you handle them. And you, as an individual, probably by default would fall into kind of the typical pattern of, if something bad happens, you wallow in it. As a ceremonial magician, if you do that, you're not living up to your own standards. So it's kind of like you're placing yourself up on an even higher pedestal, which is kind of the whole point, is you're trying to grow. And so where you have to change your perspective is, all right, I could sit here and wallow in this, or I can respond to this in a brand new way that brings about a different change and a different impact. So if somebody makes fun of me, or maybe even more so if somebody dies, how do I handle that? How do I respond? Do I sit and wallow in the pain, or do I take action to make a positive change and move forward in a way that is going to achieve the things that I want to achieve? And so now I've got no more excuse. I've got these tools that help me do exactly that. I get to respond how I want to respond and make the outcome what I want it to be, even when a stone is thrown my way to block my path. So that's probably the most powerful thing I learned, is being in control of how I respond. And that doesn't mean don't feel your feelings. It's still important to acknowledge, hey, this hurts, or hey, this sucks, or hey, this is good, or hey, this is bad, whatever it is. But you also get to make your next move whatever you want it to be. And that's true whether you practice magic or not. That's just something I learned, I took away from it. You don't need magic to know that. I'm telling you that. You can do that without magic. I say without magic, but remember, we all do magic. That is magic in and of itself. Taking that responsibility and that control, that's magic. It's the same thing. it's just not what a lot of people may call it. And a lot of self-help things or meditation or spiritual kind of channels that you may observe or see on social media or whatever, reading a book, will probably have this piece of advice in there. And it's a very powerful thing that I think is good for people to learn. You are in control of your life. You get to control how you respond to life. You can't control everybody else. You can influence people. You can talk to people and try to change their mind and their actions, but ultimately they're going to do what they're going to do, and you don't control it. There's a big difference between influence and control. You're not a puppeteer. You're just another individual who maybe can influence the thoughts of another individual. But sometimes that won't work in your favor. What you can do though is is control your own thoughts, not influence. You can do more than influence yourself. You can completely control your own thoughts and actions and how you respond to things. So even when somebody doesn't quite respond the way you would expect, well, now you can kind of change things up and figure out what you want to do next. So that is the most powerful thing I learned. That's why I harped on it for so long here. The other thing I learned is I found pause and I found peace in the pause. So what I mean by that is all the times where I go and do my daily work, I'm able to pause and let go of everything. And it is so peaceful. It is the only time where I get any peace. And it's not complete freedom from the mind you. I have to, it's part of the practice. I have to clear my mind initially to begin doing the work. So it can be hard if I'm going into it feeling anxious or sad or depressed, like my emotions are still there. I'm still a human being. But once I'm in it, I'm not worried about that anymore. If the intrusive thoughts come in, I'm equipped to move them along and say, nope, not right now. I'm doing this. And this is what I want to do. And there's peace in that. And then that is the pause. I also gained a brand new perspective on how the world operates, various different belief systems. I deconstructed whatever I thought I knew along the way as I learned more and more things, and just completely reframed my mindset, because I was already a pretty big theology nerd whenever I did kind of subscribe to Christianity. And what Magick allowed me to do was be like, all right, not only are you going to be a giant theology nerd still about all this stuff that you knew, but you're going to do the same thing for every religion that you can get your hands on, every religion that exists, and see what applies to your practice now, and see the similarities and differences, see what the common goals are. And it's just fun. It's a good history lesson. It's a good perspective shifter. It's just very insightful, because I don't have to believe in any of it, but I can kind of take what I need and take what makes sense and take what's observable, or try things even if I don't believe them, give them a shot and see if it works out, and maybe change my beliefs. It's just a mindset of not being obtuse to change and not being obtuse to new ideas. It's just eye-opening, and it's a very, I think, powerful way to live life, just being open to different ideas and perspectives, even if they seem really, really good or really, really bad. Just being aware of them and knowledgeable is a whole new mindset that I've had to shift my brain into. It's not easy. Not perfect by any means, but it's something that I enjoy about my brain now, and I don't enjoy a lot of things about my brain, so that's saying something. And the other huge thing I learned is that magic works. Whether you believe in all the weird shit or not, like I said, whenever I do these rituals, I can trust that the outcome's going to happen. It may not be how I expect it to happen, but I don't have to really worry about if I'm going to be okay or not. I just have to put in the work, and the rest will come. It works. I don't know how it's put to you. The shit works. You just try it for yourself, and it'll either work or it won't. That's the same thing I was told, and it worked for me. And if it doesn't work for you, I have another avenue for that, because magic isn't necessarily for everyone. It's not something everybody aligns with, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But first, I want to talk about kind of what's next. Now that you know where I came from, where I'm at, and what I learned, what am I doing with all this next? Well, after practicing all these years, I wrote a book. So I've hinted at that for I think a couple episodes now, and it's all over the TikTok and stuff. My book, Fundamental Magick, is going to be out very, very soon. Hopefully I'll have another episode just before it's out, just to talk about how the proofs came out and kind of go through that with everybody. But, yeah, this book is exactly about all the things that actually worked for me and brought me to where I am now. And it's very heavily influenced by books like High Magick, by books like Angels and Archangels, and by teachings from Jason and Damien and other teachers all over the place. I mean, even plenty of classic references to Golden Dawn stuff, Israel Cardi, all that kind of stuff. It's the fundamentals. So one of the things I really liked about High Magick is it was a really good fundamental book. But what I noticed as I went through is I was left with a lot of questions. And a lot of times those questions were answered by Damien's next book, which great marketing on his part. My big thing though is that because magic isn't for everybody, it doesn't necessarily align with everybody, and some people may struggle with it or not be able to identify with it. I want them to be able to try it for free. And so I was like, okay, well, let me put my perspective on it. There aren't enough works of modernity that are really accurate and insightful the same way Damien's are. So I want to contribute the same way Damien did because he was a very inspiring teacher. And so that's what fundamental magic is I cover every single thing that I would consider a fundamental. We go from the basics of visualization, just what it is as a concept, going into energy work. Then we go into some of the fundamental rituals and cover a couple of those. And I build the blocks up all the way up into the LPRP. And then we even go into the lesser invoking ritual, the pentagram. And we even go beyond that. So I talk about different natural magic practices, different correspondences regarding the planets, regarding different herbs, crystals, anything like that might be of interest to anybody who wants to incorporate different tools. But I also teach the empty hand technique, which is the same technique Damien teaches. And the idea is that if you're dropped on an island butt naked, you can still do all these things. You don't really need any of the tools. But as I practiced along the way in my own personal journey, I found that some of these tools and ideas are really helpful, and especially with working with other people who consider themselves witches or other ceremonial magicians or Thelemites or any other practices that I encounter with people on the way. I learned a lot, and so I incorporated those things into my practice, and this book adds those to it. So it just adds even more steps and more tools to hopefully help you kind of jump off from there. And then of course I go into deeper practices, talk about I completely cover the hexagram rituals, at least the lesser ones. And then I kind of springboard you off from there and saying, all right, you now have everything you really truly need. These are all the things that have put me in a position where I don't really need books other than as a reference. I don't really need a teacher other than to gain more knowledge on concepts that I may not know. But as a practice, like if I were to continue now and never read another book, I would continue to grow, which is really cool that I'm able to say that. Because I've reached a point now where as I'm practicing, I'll put two and two together. In fact, recently, like Damien calls them downloads, where maybe you'll get a thought of an idea on something that you've never seen before, or have a really crazy, almost miraculous spiritual encounter. You're like, this is some weird bullshit. Am I hallucinating? And you're not, or maybe you kind of are. Who really knows? But I've received some of those as well, where I'll be like, driving down the road, and then all of a sudden a new concept will hit me. Like one of the concepts that hit me when I started working with the entity known as Ambriel, it's the archangel over communication. They disseminated to me a ritual that I call stasis, which is basically takes the formula of the LBRP and the banishing ritual of the hexagram and puts them into a meditative state. Well, actually, it combines it with archangel meditation as well, and you basically visualize all the same symbolism, but in a way that grows energy into you, and you're able to kind of disperse it and put yourself in a stabilized state. That's what it does for me. And so it's like I'm able to gain these kind of information, and that's what it feels like. It feels like some external entity has communicated something to you, but also, you could chalk it up to, oh, well, I know these formulas. Like I know the formula for the LBRP, I know the formula for the LBRH, I know the formula for the middle pillar, and I know the formula for archangel meditation. So what can I do with that? And you build a whole new ritual from that works wonders. And so it's like all of these things, that's what's really cool about the formulas of ceremonial magic, is they build on top of each other and one thing to the next until you get to what you would need. Now, that's not to say that I know everything. I don't. I obviously have a lot more to go through, and even just listening to Damien's teaching, I know where I need to go next. And I know what I'm looking for next, but I would not be stunted if I lost everything today and was dropped off on an island, right? And that's what fundamental magic provides. It's providing the same things that worked for me to get me to this particular point. So that way you can kind of take your jump from there and be confident in your own practice and keep moving. So that's fundamental magic, and I really am excited, and I hope it helps a lot of people. And the biggest thing, kind of like I alluded to, is that it'll be pseudo free. So obviously I put a lot of work into it. I would like to be compensated for it. It took a lot of life and energy out of me. So if you'd like to buy a hard copy of the book, that will be available. But if you don't know what this is and this all sounds really sketchy and weird to you, but you still kind of want to peep into it, well, the PDF copy will be 100% free, and you're welcome to try it out. And I take no offense to that. I want the information to be completely free. If you want to help support, definitely buy a copy. But if you just want to dabble and see what's up, or even if you don't have the funds to do so, that's why it's free. I want people to be able to help themselves and grow regardless of anything else. And then also, if it doesn't work for you, I want you to be able to put it down without complaining that you wasted your money on something, because I got lucky and it worked for me. So I don't feel like I wasted any money on any of the things that I bought and read. But I just want to challenge the status quo. I want to put out more work into modernity that supports these great authors and these great teachers. And it's just work that is both inspired by and like theirs, and contributes to a greater cause where necessary, but hopefully in a way that pushes the envelope a little bit more. So that's one thing that's next. The other thing is, from here I am going to keep growing. So I've read, as far as magic specifically goes, obviously there's a lot more books unrelated directly to magic that are like biblical or other religions that I've read. But specific to ceremonial magic, I have kind of identified myself as a Thelemite. I don't really strictly, I'm not religious, so I don't really want to say that I prescribe to religion, but if I had to pick one, it would be Thelema. And I really do agree with the core message of do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. And the rest of it is kind of just fun to me. So I don't take it too seriously, but I did read, the entirety of the Book of Lies and the Book of the Law. And those were just fun, I guess. And it was after I had already well established myself in the ceremonial magic, so none of the concepts were confusing. That's something else I'll say is reading books like High Magic or like Fundamental Magic when it comes out are going to be fantastic palate cleansers that will get you in correctly. So that way when you do go read these ancient books, they're not really that old, but in terms of how they're written and the riddles and the metaphors everything's written in, you'll be able to understand them completely, because we broke out of that, all the bullshit basically. So, all right, all this verbiage is dumb and bullshit. Here's what's actually going on. So now when you go back and read them, you're like, oh, that metaphor was this thing that I already know how to do. And you're able to piece things together. So that me reading those Aleister Crowley books after I had already established practice was one of the key point in having clarity and being able to go through those things. And also, if you happen to have a background studying religious or esoteric texts to begin with, that helps too, and that helped me a lot. But anyway, so yeah, I read Book of Lies, read the Book of the Law, I read High Magic, and I've also read the majority of Angels and Archangels. I'm letting a friend borrow that book right now because I felt that I needed to pause my practice where it was at. I needed to really reinforce where I was at and keep repeating what I'm doing now over and over again, and let this friend kind of begin to grow until they are done with the reference. And then when I get it back, I'll pick up where I left off. So in the meantime, I'm actually reading Empire of Angels by Jason Louv, and that's more of a biographical account of John Dee's life. John Dee is one of the primary contributors to Enochian magic. which is the ancient language of the angels, or so it's claimed. It's not really a book on magic. It's not instructional. It's more of a, like I said, a biographical account, but it's still very, very insightful in providing historical context for how the Enochian system came about. And I'm about a little over, I would say 80% done with that book, and it's been a very fun read, and I can't wait to finish it. But I'm doing that, and then once I'm done with that, like I said, I'll resume Angels and Archangels, and then I'll move on to Damien's latest book, Ritual. I already have it on my shelf. It's more of a grimoire. It's a lot of practical rituals and stuff. So for me, it'll be like an addition to my practice. I'll be able to add more rituals into my tool belt that I'll want to try. And so after I do all that, I've got a plethora of other books that I'll tackle to help myself grow. I've got the Magus, which is one of them. That's a classic one. That's pretty old and still has a lot of goodies in it that'll be easy for me to read now that I've got this background. And I'll even read some of the traditional Crowley and Golden Dawn text stuff. And then once I'm done kind of going through all that, we'll go from there. I'll either read more books or maybe go get some teachings whenever Jason or Damien are doing some more formal stuff if I feel like it. But ideally, by the time I'm done with all that kind of stuff, I'll be well equipped with anything I would actually need. The rest is just because I would want to go do it, not because I need the knowledge per se, because I would want to hear it out of the mouths of other people who are also experiencing it and see if I can gain any other nuggets from personal experience, because that's what Echoes Box is all about too. It's the shared experiences. What did you get out of it? What is your take? What is your perspective? And how did that affect you? Were you able to change anything in ways that were powerful for you and insightful and impactful for you? So yeah, with that, is ceremonial magic for you, specifically you, the listener that I'm talking to right now. Like I said before, it's not for everyone. It requires a lot of discipline. It requires a desire to take responsibility for how you go about your life. You cannot avoid that. If you're going to be a ceremonial magician, you have to take responsibility for your actions. You have to take control of how you respond to things and be responsible for that for yourself. So not everyone's going to align with this path. But while it may not be for everyone, it is a path anyone can take. It is open to all. It's not restrictive. This is not in no way, shape, or form me saying, yeah, you probably shouldn't do this if you're like this or that. No, it doesn't matter who you are or what you think. It's open to everybody. Please try it. I would want you to try it. I'm just also saying that if it doesn't quite fit you and you don't like it, that's totally okay too, because it's not the only path. I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, you have to do this or you're never going to be an enlightened individual. This is the only way to... No, that's some bullshit. There are about 100 different paths you can take that all achieve the same goal, and some fit better for other people's mindsets than others. And ceremonial magic just may not be one that you like, and that's totally okay. But you are open to try it. It's open for people of all walks of life and all backgrounds. Everybody from your most staunch atheist all the way to your most devout Taoist, Christian, Buddhist, whatever you want to claim to be. It's for you. Everybody does magic. You just may not call it that. And even when you do another practice, they may not call it magic, but they'll call it something else, and that's okay too. Like, it's still magic, and it's also whatever they call it. It's a synonym. Welcome to concepts of linguistics. But yeah, there's so many other paths, just like ceremonial magic, and you just find what suits you best. It could be secular or spiritual. The ideals that I would look for, though, if you're interested in having the outcomes that I've had and that I've experienced, would be to look for practices that also kind of talk about those same outcomes, talk about how to be in control of your life, that talk about finding peace in the pause, that talk about perspectives on how the world operates, and trusting the outcome of making changes in your life, and just being in control and growing, finding growth. If any practice that you can find has those ideals, go for it, because it's probably going to lead you to the exact same thing that I've been led to. So, whether it's Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, all those paths specifically have very similar elements. There's even chaos magic, which Jason Liu is a great teacher. Go check out magic.me. Chaos magic is I like to say sometimes ceremonial magic on steroids. It's just a more free-flowing form of it, but it's not really unstructured, even though the name of chaos might imply it to be so. Chaos magic is super cool. It's not that's a great example where chaos magic's not for me personally, but I still love it. I love the ideals of it. It's something that's very beautiful. So that's another path. There's tons of pagan practices out there that also incorporate aspects of ceremonial and natural magic, and they're just all over the place. There are so many paths out there that achieves all the goals, and sometimes some of the goals in the exact same way. You just need to orient yourself and put in the work. That part doesn't change. All of the paths are going to require you to put in the work and be disciplined. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into ceremonial magic. That's what it's all about. It's just about changing your life. And there are some deeper things to it. There's concepts like your true will and the great work. And these are just ideas of achieving what may be traditionally known as a path to enlightenment, maybe in Eastern traditions, if you're more familiar with those. But it's all about the path you choose to take. You can practice ceremonial magic for completely different reasons that don't have anything to do with some kind of higher purpose if you want to. Personally, I kind of stick to the traditional path, I can't say it's truly the traditional path. I stick to a modern version of the traditional path, but my goals are the same as most of the traditional paths. I just have a more modern understanding of what that means to me. So yeah, that's that. While there are deeper things to it, it's really what you make of it. And if you're interested more in any of that, keep an eye out for Fundamental Magic. And in the meantime, I of course highly recommend Damian Eccles and Jason Liu's teaching. They have wonderful free videos on YouTube. They've got books out. Magick.me is a course taught by Jason Liu. And please go support Damian Eccles in his current battle with all his legal proceedings. They've been breaking a lot of ground trying to uncover who actually committed the murder of during the West Memphis 3 stuff. The DNA evidence. It's been a whole thing. I'm not one who's an expert to talk about any of it, but I definitely am a strong supporter of Damian, and would encourage you to go read into it more and follow him and show him some love and support wherever you can. He's somebody who saved my life, man, with all the teachings and just putting himself out there. And I'm here now, and I'm a better person than I was. I'm a completely different person than I was. I started talking about where I came from at the start of all this. That person doesn't exist anymore. They're dead. And I am now who I am now, and eventually this person in some ways will be dead. And I'll grow into something more because of all this, which is awesome. That's not a negative thing at all. Growth and change for positive things to become more of who you should be. That's magic. So that, as above, so below. And I hope you grow to amazing heights that you never thought possible.
Show